This is a black woman. She's in her 30s. Her husband is, let me just tell you, he is a semi-truck driver. She does own a gun, and she does own a purple taser, like a personal taser that you can put in your purse for protection. The defense asked that she be stricken for cause, but then they did not use a preempt on her. Now, you're sitting there as a jury consultant. You're advising the defense. Is it because you think that she is just going to go along with the crowd now, that you don't want to use a preempt, or what? What did you see that may have changed the defense's mind as our jury consultant?
I think that the revelation that she has handled a handgun before, that she has handled a taser before, the fact that she is a woman, and I think there is an understanding that there is potentially a bias. Everybody has a bias on anything that when it comes to law and police practices. So I think once the evidence comes forward and her ability to know what the difference is between first-degree manslaughter and second-degree manslaughter, that she would be in a position and have the enough knowledge and intelligence to know that one maybe fits the criteria better than the other.
Yeah, interesting, Lisa, that you make a distinction that they may have wanted her on because maybe she'll come in with not a not guilty, but a lower degree of the crime, and hadn't really thought about that. Interesting distinction. Lisa Lockwood, Earl Grey actually questioned down a little bit more on this juror's discussion about Black Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter and Cops Lives Matter, and he seemed to then backtrack a little, saying that, well, all lives matter, but I don't agree that Cops Lives Matter should have been, or Blue Lives Matter should have been slogans, because it seemed to be a marketing aspect, but it is important that, you know, we don't have them dying at any type of alarming rate, and also with Black Lives Matter, that we don't have Black or people of color dying at an alarming rate. Is good both sides, likable for both sides?
I don't think so. Here's somebody that I believe does have a bias, and obviously I'm a police veteran. So with ambushes up against police officers at an all-time high, the percentages are so high, crime is so high, the dangers of law enforcement. You know, I come from knowing the implicit dangers that are out there and knowing those last minute decisions when you're there thinking, am I going to go home at the end of the day, and what's going to happen? And tunnel vision comes in. Even with the best training, sometimes we are imperfect, just like medical personnel are imperfect with leaving appliances in people. So even though we choose the job, everybody does react differently in the heat of a moment.
And interestingly enough, Lisa, that indeed this juror also was left on the jury panel. And interestingly enough, I think she can change her mind. I know there's been cases where I've promised or advised my team to promise the defendant would testify, and then later on changed our mind. And we told the jury that's because us lawyers, we decided to do something different because the state did not prove their burden of the proof, we thought. Okay, Lisa Lockwood, you know about guns and police procedure more than anyone I know. Tell me the difference between how a police officer in this situation identifies their, or misidentifies their service weapon for their taser.
Okay, so there's lots of training leading up to that, and these have been in use for the last 20 years, tasers, and you need to have repeated training, sometimes quarterly, across the nation in different law enforcement agencies. The first thing you do is you put it on your opposite hip, which is your weak side. Your duty weapon is on your strong side. So whether you're right or left-handed, and then you do the opposite because it breaks up the pattern of the usual draw that's being practiced over and over and over again. So that's going to break it up just so that you're aware that, okay, I am pulling my taser. And then also there's a differentiation, obviously, in the color and the size. So some agencies still use black tasers. So the coloring has not been changed. It's not across the board. It hasn't been unilateral. But I would imagine after this, there will be a criteria to help a police officer to distinguish it even further than doing a cross-body draw and having it be a different color.
Yeah, no matter what happens, a tragic situation all the way around.